Hello, hello, hello. This is Gresh from the I Am CEO podcast, and I have a very special guest on the show today. I have Shane Foss of Hooray Health. Shane, it's awesome to have you on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me, Gresh. Really looking forward to it.
Me too. Super excited to have you on. And before we jumped in, I want to read a little bit more about Shane so you can hear about all these awesome things that he's doing. And Shane is an expert in business development and strategy, sales strategy, and team development. After over 20 years in the healthcare industry, Shane decided to use his passion for technology to improve healthcare operations and products. In 2018, he launched Hooray Health, an unconventional health insurance company that works hard to make healthcare coverage simple, accessible, and affordable. Shane, are you ready to speak to the IMCO community?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Let's do it. So to kick everything off, I wanted to hear a little bit more on how you got started. Could you take us through what I call your CEO story? We'll let you get started with all the awesome things you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it was a long journey here. I think that, really starting back to my childhood and my upbringing. And, I had a lot of really good mentors growing up. And I found myself in the military and as a surgical technologist in the military, I got introduced to healthcare where, I assisted surgeons during surgery and just fell in love with the space. And so, from there, after I got out of the military, I joined Johnson & Johnson, worked there for a while, and then ended up with Stryker Orthopedics, and which was a great experience, wonderful organization. And that's really probably where, most of my professional development really came from. And met a lot of great people, learned a ton. And what we did was we sold medical device, so orthopedic implants. And so we were in surgery. And so really learning the clinical side of the business. And then after that, I bought my own business and did very well there, sold it. And then one of my buddies that was at Stryker called me up and said, "Hey, I just got my first CEO position as CEO of this health benefit startup. Would you come work with me as my COO?" And I was absolutely. So it was a great timing. And it was, that was my first entry into the health benefits world. And so gave me a completely different view of what's going on in healthcare. But what was interesting is I could take what I had already learned in the past and kind of apply it here. And it was, so I'm kind of an outsider really coming in. And so we did really well with the company. We basically sold access to surgical bundles to large self-funded employers where, we were, one of a few companies that had done that. And we'd taken a different strategy, and we sold 11 months after I started, stayed on another 6 months, and then really wanted to figure out what I wanted to do next. And so, the path was, really personal experience. I think anytime you talk to an entrepreneur, they didn't just wake up one day and say, "I think I'm going to do something," right? Something stimulated that thought. And so what had happened to me was I was consulting and my back went out, and I'd never had anything like that happen. And so I went into an urgent care, and I had health insurance at the time. It was a $75 copay. I went in and I asked them, "Well, how much?" I haven't hit my deductible. "So how much is the total bill going to be?" $150. Okay, great. So I paid it. I went in and they took an x-ray of my neck. They gave me 2 injections, a muscle relaxer and anti-inflammatory, when they saw what they thought was a bone spur and was irritating my nerve root and C4, C5 and just inflaming my back. Great. So I'm thinking, I paid $150. I'm good to go. Well, 3 to 6 weeks later, I received an $800 balance bill. So I call them up and I said, "Hey, what's going on? Why am I getting a balance bill?" And they're like, "Well, you got carve outs and and what other industry do you not know what you're going to get charged, right? Yeah. Even when they're telling you what you're going to get charged, you still have no idea, and you're legally liable for it." So that was where I really came up with the idea of Hooray Health, in the sense that we looked at what was going on in healthcare, and there's really this gap between full-time hourly and salaried hourly. And then even, if you're making less than $100,000 right now, a lot of times you can't, unless your employer is paying 100% of your bill, you can't afford it, your medical insurance bill. So we saw this gap, and nobody was taking care of the hourly and the part-time especially. So I went out and I had the idea. I built this national network of retail clinics and urgent cares with fixed pricing, and we were the only ones that have ever done it. And so for $25, our members go into any of our urgent cares or retail clinics for $25, no balance bill, and they get the services that they need. And so that's kind of the story. It's the long story, but it's important because, it's, until everybody, I don't know why, but everybody accepts this fact that, well, you just don't know what it's going to be, and you put up with it, and then you pay the bill if you can't, and or if you can, and if you can't, you get sent to collections. So it's a tough place to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I definitely appreciate you, telling the story, because I think definitely a lot of people that are listening to this may have either experienced that or know somebody that experienced that, maybe been more on the lucky side of being able to pay it, but still, I think it creates that kind of hesitation to sometimes go to the doctor sometimes because you
Absolutely.
don't know what you're going to pay. And I think in true entrepreneurial form, just like you said, everybody sometimes just accepts it. But I think the true entrepreneur sees a problem, creates a solution for it. And I love that you've been able to do that. So I know you touched a little bit on, the business and what exactly you do and how you serve your clients. Could you drill a little bit more into that and what you feel kind of maybe sets you apart and is what I call your secret sauce that makes you unique?
Yeah, absolutely. So really, we only focus on the hourly, whether it's part-time or full-time employees. And so with that, every product that we put out is focused to be accessible, simple, and affordable, right? And so, and affordability looks different in this population. And so, what really sets us apart is that we have this provider network that's ours that is connected to technology, and then we use additional services to where we can offer your basic and accident, sickness and accident care for less than $100 a month. I mean, we're talking sometimes we get it down to $60, $70. And so, but what our goal is that we're trying to provide affordable accessibility to people getting into the health insurance space. And what that does is, you talk about, you said it perfectly, which is, yeah, sometimes I really rethink going into the doctor. Well, we don't want that, right? We want to make sure that, especially with your kids, I mean, people are making bad medical decisions based on the financials, which is a reality. And so, what sets us apart is that's kind of what we live every day. That's what we focus on. And our experience is completely different than what a person, an hourly person is normally going to experience, because we have the mobile app. We have, from an eligibility standpoint, our ID card is recognized in any provider's office. Normally people would go in if they had benefits similar to ours. They would go in and they would make them pay first, and then they'd have to get reimbursed. And, it's a financial burden. And so with us, they go in, oh, it's hooray. They send the bill to us. We pull the money out, pay them, and then, you're good to go. So it's, our biggest competitive advantage is that this is the area that we focus on, and we put all of our time and energy. So we look at it like we're not major medical, but we try to give that major medical experience.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing, and I don't know if you feel, but I always feel like sometimes people that are not all the way entrenched in the industry sometimes have that opportunity to kind of see things and look at things in a different way. They don't take it as is, as you kind of touched
Right.
on. But I don't know if that's been your experience with building the company and seeing that problem, but of course solving it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny because, one of the biggest issues in our space, because we have, lots of competitors that have been around a long time, but they've literally just, this is the way it is. And we're not improving the product. And we're not, it's just one of the products we offer. Well, for us, we look at it completely different, right? We're customers ourselves. We ask the question, well, wait a second, why does the provider why are they not able to see that we have health insurance and that we're able to, we should, get our $25 copay as opposed to having to pay for the whole bill first and then get reimbursed and then fight for reimbursement from them because we paid too much. I mean, it's just a nightmare. And so, so we, by spending our whole time here, everything we focus on is how do we provide tools for the employee, but the employer, how do you, recruit and retain better talent? Even even in the current climate we're in, where there are a lot of people laid off or furloughed, it's still always a dogfight for talent, always. The number one issue is always getting the right people. And so if we're able to help the employer provide a valuable benefit that they actually appreciate, then guess what? We've done our job. We've helped them, and they're going to retain that person or be able to recruit a top talent.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if you feel the same way, but I feel like a lot of times I go back to this quote all the time is people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I feel like sometimes when you're
Yeah,
going into something, through a medical experience and you may have a nightmare experience, but you have an employer that does take care of you. Obviously you remember it there, but to me, it can last very long time into the future as well too. So you create that kind of bond and that, that caring attitude and environment, I think goes really, really far.
oh, absolutely. I mean, people make decisions based on their worth in your organization, right?
Mhm.
If I feel like I'm valued, I get people calling me all the time saying, "Hey, would you like to look at this job or this job?" And if I'm valued, why am I going to go anywhere, right? Why, and it's not always about pay, right? Always, but sometimes it can be. But the reality is, it's am I engaged and bought into the organization? Do I feel valued? And does my boss really care about me? Does the organization care about me? And that's huge.
Yes, absolutely. And like you said, sometimes it's not as quantifiable as, a pay raise or something like that. So
Sure.
I love that you provide one of those benefits to employers and of course the employees as well too. And so I wanted to switch gears a little bit and I wanted to ask you for what I call a CEO hack. So this could be like an app, a book, or a habit that you have, but what's something that makes you more effective and efficient?
So I like to get in the office early, and I think one of the things that helps me out is I get my busy work done when nobody else is in the office. I'm
Mm,
not, because um, you know, we have 25 employees. We're still, relatively small, but the reality is there's still a lot of demands on my time, and I need to make sure that I'm available to help where needed and guide um, and uh, and so getting all of that stuff done early in the morning. It's getting up, and like this morning I was in the office at 6 a.m. and so I'm here, I'm getting things done, answering emails, knocking stuff out. And then the rest of the day is kind of the pressure's off to be able to focus on, really what matters when my team is in the office.
yeah, I absolutely love that. I think there's a book, I think it's called Eat That Frog or something like that.
Yeah.
And it talks about like in the morning, you take care of those things
Right.
so that it gives you and frees up that energy and that time so you can focus later on in the day. You're not worried about trying to eat the frog later on when, there might be fires and stuff going on.
Right. Yeah. Because I can always go work out later on in the day. It doesn't really matter. Right. So,
Right.
getting that stuff done in the morning I think is the golden hour.
Yeah, absolutely love that hack. And so now I wanted to ask you for what I call a CEO nugget. So this could be a word of wisdom or a piece of advice, and it might be something if you jumped into a time machine, you would tell your younger business self.
Yeah, so I think the most important thing, especially from an entrepreneur standpoint, or you can use it for, if you're in a large corporation and you're trying to find new markets to enter. Um, we talked about solving for a problem. So there's a couple things. So when you're solving for a problem and you identify that problem, really love the problem and not your solution, because the
Mm,
problem more than likely will remain the same, right? On some different level, it may vary a little bit, but your solution is going to change most definitely. And when you look at companies that fail and succeed versus companies that succeed, it is, a lot of it has to do is they're in love with their product. And so somebody else comes up with, they're looking at it saying, man, we can do this so much better if we do X, Y, Z. And if you're not constantly evolving your product to, really address the problem, then you're going to get passed.
yeah, I absolutely love that. And I think, we all being entrepreneurial, sometimes, love what we do. We're so passionate about it that sometimes, like you said, you fall in love with the solution and you
Right.
kind of have that sunk cost that starts to build up and you feel like you're so attached to it that you forget why
Right.
you're doing what you're doing, which is the problem. And I love that, changing the perspective, because when you fall in love with the problem, even if the solution isn't fully, fulfilling that problem, you're able to pivot, you're able to change, and you're able to do what you ultimately wanted to do, which is solve that solution,
Yep.
solve that problem.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. Because if you're not evolving, you're dying, right? I mean,
Right.
it's, evolution is incredibly important. And, every year last week, we started our, 2021 product discussions. What are we improving this year, right? How are we going to improve as an organization, which areas, and start mapping that out now, because, you look, if you rest on your laurels, which is what, I see every one of our competitors doing today, is, you're going to, I mean, the people we compete against today, literally, I'm not joking. If you look at their plan brochures, their designs, everything they were doing from 10 years ago, it's the exact same thing they're doing today. And, which is, great. Hey, keep doing it. We love that.
Yeah, absolutely. That creates a tremendous amount of opportunity. And a lot of times we forget that, like you said, change is the only inevitable, progression is so important. So to understand that, a lot of times if you continue to kind of have that culture, when sometimes the disruptive time happens, or even as it's happening slowly and gradually, you're right there to be able to kind of take the mantle, so to speak.
Right. Absolutely. Yep.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So now I wanted to ask you my absolute favorite question, which is the definition of what it means to be a CEO. And we're hoping to have different quote unquote CEOs on this show. So Shane, what does being a CEO mean to you?
It means a lot of humility, a lot of pressure. But really, I think that the CEO is really CEO and coach. You need to bring your team together. You need to be able to challenge people. You need to be a good listener. Um, I'm not trying to be cliche, but it really is. I've been in sports my whole life, and the good coaches you always remember, and the good coaches, your team, they may not be the most athletic, they may not be the smartest, but when you work with them and you give them that confidence and that guidance and let them fail, and then making sure that everybody learns from those failures. I think the most important thing is the coaching aspect of it, because if you have a team that is not cohesive and not working together to solve the problems, as a CEO, it's your fault, and it's you're you're not you're not maximizing your talent, and shame on you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I'm a big sports junkie myself. So always, looking from that lens and that perspective, I love how there's so many synergies between running a successful, team, or a franchise
Mm-hmm.
in the same way as running a business. And that coach is really, to me, like a really great definition, or a symbol of a leader, because a leader understands exactly what each member of the team is doing. It understands exactly what the goal is and able to kind of merge those two and communicate to a person where they're at about what they're interested in as well too. And I think when you're able to kind of dial into that and take that coaching role, that's really when things go to an entirely different level.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, Shane, truly appreciate that definition. I appreciate your time even more. What I wanted to do is pass you the mic, so to speak, just to see if there's anything additional you can let our readers and listeners know, and of course, how best they can get a hold of you and find out about all the awesome things you and your team are working on.
Yeah, awesome. So you can get a hold of us at Hooray, Hooray, healthcare.com. We're constantly working on innovating our core products and expanding our product line to offer, really continue to stay focused on the hourly, full-time, and part-time population. I think from a just a nugget to leave your listeners is, a lot of people listening, if you're listening to podcasts, you're always about that self-improvement, and you're always looking for that one thing. Continue to keep pushing, and when the time is right, you'll know it. Don't go in prematurely. Make sure that you've done your due diligence, and you make sure that you're ready for the opportunity, because when it comes, it'll come, and you'll know it. And it's an exciting time. It's a nervous time, but I tell you what, I wouldn't trade it for anything. So
Nice. Well, I absolutely appreciate that, Shane. We will have the links and information in the show notes as well too. But I appreciate you kind of leaving us with that word of wisdom and the reminder to continue to innovate. I appreciate you for obviously doing that to help out so many people, in this world. But I think it's a great reminder for us to really tap into that and not get, lethargic or used to like where we're at, but continue to kind of strive forward because that's really where all the magic things happen.
Absolutely. Complacency is death.
Yeah, absolutely. Either you're growing or you're dying, right?
Exactly.
Well,
Yep,
Shade,
exactly.
truly appreciate you again. I hope you have a great rest of the day.
All right. Thanks. You too.